You must have heard tear-jerking love stories before. But have you ever wondered what would happen if that love transcends the boundaries of God? Those fallen angels once stood in the celestial radiance of heaven, turned their back on God because of an emotion beyond their control. They loved humanity, loved earthly women, and from that, a series of horrific events unfolded. But what happened when those angels turned your mortal wives into such monstrous creatures? Why did the children born of that forbidden love become the Nephilim giants, whose power could shake the heavens and the earth? And most importantly, what punishment did those women endure when the world changed forever? Be ready to go, for this story is more than just a warning about betrayal, and also an eternal lesson about the boundaries that must never be crossed. Join me in uncovering the hidden mysteries of the Bible, things you may have never known before. You know, sometimes just a glance is enough to change everything. This story stands as one of the most glaring examples of tragically misunderstood love in history. Just imagine, in heaven, the angels are busy completing their assigned tasks. Sing praises to God, the one who sustains the universe in flawless motion. They had only one mission: to serve God. Simple as that, right? But then something unexpected happened. The mighty angels cast their gaze upon the mortal world, when suddenly they beheld something so astonishing it made them halt in wonder. Human women, not just any woman, but one so beautiful that nothing in this world can compare. They are beautiful in a way only humans can be. And now for the most exciting part of the story. Those angels should have risen above all earthly desires. Suddenly, a strange feeling welled up inside. It was an indescribable pull, one they couldn't begin to explain. Every time they looked down, that feeling surged even stronger. Their radiance gradually faded as unworthy thoughts flooded their mind. Below the surface, life goes on as usual. The woman lives her life, works, laughs joyfully, and loves. They had no idea that up above, mighty beings were defying all laws just to catch a glimpse of them. But the strange thing is, the same is happening to those very women. They felt as if someone was watching them, sensing they were truly different, as though a miracle was about to happen. The air suddenly feels different. Can you sense it? That moment right before the storm hits. It was a mix of boundless energy, a sense of perilous unease, and indescribable excitement. Everything blends together. All seems to stand still, as if the entire universe is holding its breath, waiting for something extraordinary to appear. The angels know full well they're playing with fire. Whenever the thought of leaving heaven arose within them, they remembered their divine mission, the sacred duty of celestial warriors. But that urge grew increasingly intense. They began asking themselves questions they had never considered before. If we could truly understand what others are feeling, if we could love the way they love, hearts that were meant only to love God are now overwhelmed by desires beyond their control. Every day, more and more angels turn their gaze down to earth. But with each passing day, their resolve dwindles a little more. This choice leaves them torn between sticking to their original goal or letting new emotions take over. Everything is about to change. Never have heaven and earth blended so seamlessly. But those angels, who once stood by the throne of God and witnessed with their own eyes the creation of countless stars. Now, what am I willing to trade everything for? For a chance to love humanity. No one could have foreseen that this decision would set off a chain of events shaking both heaven and earth. They are angels who turned their backs on heaven. If you look closely, you'll notice something is amiss. Their smiles hide secrets darker than the night, and so do their eyes. Despite its dazzling beauty, it conceals an unfathomable depth and an ancient grandeur that no human can ever match. Women who meet them are drawn in like moths to a flame. It's so unfair. How could anyone turn away someone who shines as brightly as heaven? Some understand you deeply before you even speak. Others promise you what no one in this world can deliver. But the true horror had only just begun. The longer those women stayed near the fallen angels, the more they began to change. As if they touched a strange light from another world, and from that moment, the way they saw everything change. An ordinary life now holds no meaning. Common men seem dull and flavorless when standing beside those extraordinary beings. The fallen angels were fully aware of their actions. They deliberately chose the most beautiful women, those they had gazed upon from heaven. They used supernatural power to manifest as the very things those women had longed for all their lives. The story resembles a romantic fairy tale, but hides a haunting and unexpected horror element. Whenever an angel weds a mortal, it not only stirs upheaval in the heavens but also sends tremors through the earthly realm. These marriages were anything but normal. They were bonds that should never have existed, and the children born from these marriages pushed our story into an even darker turn. Children born from unaccepted marriages, the offspring of forbidden love. Imagine a child born who never stops growing. Instead of staying small and adorable like usual, they just keep getting taller and taller without end. These are not ordinary children. They are colossal giants with terrifying strength, capable of lifting entire mountains, and their ravenous hunger can sweep entire villages clean. When a Nephilim walks, the earth trembles. When they speak, their voice echoes like thunder. Strength and their mortal mother. Imagine a child throwing a tantrum, but instead of being small as usual, now they're as big as a house. Pretty scary, isn't it? The cities lived in constant fear of those giants. Ordinary people can't accomplish anything. They freely take whatever they like, eat whatever they want, and destroy everything in their way. Some were as tall as ancient trees, others even taller than that. They are not only enormous but also extremely intelligent, making the threat they pose even more terrifying. In heaven, God saw everything that was happening. His perfect world is now disrupted by hybrid creatures, beings who had no right to exist. His wrath grew ever fiercer as he watched these behemoths spread terror among the creatures he had made. Those whom the Lord once cherished now live in constant fear, hiding in their homes and pleading for deliverance. Here are the two natural English translation options. But even for them, facing a Nephilim was no easy task. Fighting a Nephilim is no different from confronting a supernatural force. They are nearly invincible, and what's even more terrifying is their overwhelming numbers. The archangels gathered their forces, knowing this would be the greatest battle ever fought in their history. Michael, Gabriel, and the others had meticulously planned the attack. Just barge in recklessly like that, because their opponents now errant. These are creatures blessed with angelic blood, but the most wonderful thing is having God always by your side, walking with you. You always have well-prepared backup plans. When the archangels realized that even they were not powerful enough to stop the Nephilim, God decided to intervene in the matter himself. He is nurturing a plan that could forever change this world. The flood will sweep away all the evil spreading across the earth. The battle that followed was so fierce it was unprecedented in human history. The heavenly army fought against the mighty Nephilim as the great flood drew near. Lightning tore through the sky, thunder roared across the mountains, and then the rain began to pour. For the first time in their lives, the Nephilim felt something they had never experienced before. Here are the English translation options, keeping the original concise and natural tone. Everything will become clear. Angels, humans, and Nephilim all have boundaries that should never be crossed. Multiply that number by 1 million. That's how it all began, on the day God decided enough was enough. The sky wasn't just growing darker, it was pitch black, like ink. The air was so stifling it made you suffocate. At first, no one paid much attention to this matter. Rain is normal, right? The heavy raindrops fell like tears streaming from heaven. They didn't fall leisurely, but plunged straight down to the ground. Hour after hour, day after day, the rain kept falling without end. Unrelenting, unceasing, the rain poured down heavily from the gloomy sky. The mighty Nephilim, once the terror of all creatures. For the first time in my life, I felt fear. The giants who could crush rocks barehanded now stand powerless before the surging, rising tide. They struggled to climb the highest peaks, but the floodwaters kept rising relentlessly. Their strength is now worthless. Everywhere echoed the sounds of screams and cries, pleading for mercy to the heavens. The fallen angels could only stand helplessly, watching their children, the mighty creatures they had created, struggle against the great deluge. But they could do nothing. This was God's punishment, and no power in heaven or on earth could stop it. Amid the chaos, Noah's Ark floated peacefully, a steadfast anchor. It imagines you aboard that ship, hearing the storm howling outside, feeling each violent wave tossing you around like a tiny toy. Inside are the only people and creatures that waves spared in this global purge. They heard the desperate cries for help from outside, but could only stand by helplessly, unable to lend a hand. This is God's will, and they must trust in it. The water kept rising, higher and higher. At first, it spread across the fields, then reached the dense forests, and gradually advanced up the hills. Finally, even the mightiest mountains dissolve into the endless waves. The Nephilim, those mighty giants who once seemed unstoppable. Now, only the things left behind by the flood remain. Their superhuman strength couldn't save them from drowning. The fallen angels can only gaze from their chains at all they had toiled to build. All their loved ones were swept away, swallowed by the icy currents. Their wonderful children, their flesh and blood wives, and the cities they helped build, all vanished into the void. The world, once tainted by them, is now being cleansed. For 40 days and 40 nights, the rain poured down relentlessly. When the last rain finally ceased, the whole world was submerged in a vast ocean. No more mountains, no more valleys, no more streets, only a vast expanse of water stretching endlessly to the horizon. The only sign of life was the solitary nose ship drifting on the vast ocean. As the water gradually receded, it revealed an entirely unfamiliar world. Everything the Nephilim built turned to dust and smoke. It's like hitting the reset button for Earth. But for some, especially the wives of the fallen angels, a punishment even more terrible is about to begin. When the last flood recedes, you might think all the worst is over. But for some, it's only the beginning. Remember the women who once loved fallen angels. They were lucky to survive the flood, but perhaps it wasn't a true miracle. Perhaps that was a curse. Imagine loving someone with all your heart. A man of talent and power, yet reduced to watching them dragged away in chains. That is exactly what those women went through. The husbands were once their angels, so mighty and radiant in their time. Now, I am lost in the vast darkness. Some people are trapped in deep, shadowy valleys. Others are trapped within the prison of their own minds. They could no longer help their wives, nor could they protect them anymore. I couldn't even open my arms to hold them close. The neglected wives, left alone to face the consequences of their own actions. Some of them were truly very touching. Try to imagine the feeling of realizing that your own decisions contributed to bringing about doomsday. It is a heavy moral debt that is nearly impossible to cleanse. They knelt, pleading to God for mercy and forgiveness, weeping until their tears ran dry, utterly exhausted. But not everyone feels regret. For example, Nama, a beautiful, proud name, enduring countless storms yet resolutely refusing to yield. She was lost in the beauty and power of herself, used them to lure others onto the wrong path. Now, she still stubbornly stands her ground, refusing to admit she was wrong. Her arrogance became a cage that trapped her within herself. God's punishment is truly creative and full of patience. Those women were transformed into bizarre creatures in the deep sea. Those creatures deceived the sailors, leading them to their deaths. Right, it, cursed to be beautiful, but at the cost of death. Like the angels they once adored, always dragging others into the abyss of destruction, as they themselves were drawn into it. Those women must carry within them a heavy burden of guilt for the rest of their lives. They understood that their own choices had contributed to the destruction of this world. There are people who, in their overwhelming sorrow, lose their sanity. Others become hollow shells, devoid of any vitality. The burden from what they had done was beyond endurance. And those husbands, seemingly like angels, were imprisoned in their own jails. I can fully understand what those wives are going through. They understood the pain, the despair, and even the madness in the hearts of the wives. But they were powerless, unable to do anything. When discussing the issue of torture, the angels loyal to God were entrusted with a new mission. They need to make sure similar incidents won't happen again. They stood watching the mermaids, those strange sea creatures, who were also their sisters-in-law from years past, to sing one's own mournful melodies. They saw people begin to rebuild their lives, trying to close the door on the horrific nightmare left by the flood. Here are the translations. The world has been scrubbed clean, yet the old scars remain etched, unyielding. The loyal angels always keep a safe distance. They observed but did not intervene. They learned their lesson. There are boundaries that should never be crossed, no matter how sweet the reason may be. But here's a truth that will leave you stunned. This is the battle between the two most powerful creatures to ever exist. Michael and Lucifer. What are they fighting for? Near Moses' area. Exactly, you heard it right. It's Moses, the one who parted the Red Sea. This battle was so crucial that it was kept completely secret, in a Bible dating back over 3,000 years. But hardly anyone knows about that. Are you wondering what made Michael so angry that he had to confront Lucifer? Or why does Lucifer want to kill Moses so badly? Trust me, what happened next completely changed our understanding of these immensely powerful creatures. Ultimately, it's the irresistible allure of the forbidden. It can lead us to make wrong decisions, resulting in unpredictable consequences. Once mighty beings who stood bathed in the celestial radiance. Now, he must suffer an eternal punishment with no escape. An irreversible, irredeemable punishment. This warning is not just for the angels, but for all of us. Sometimes, crossing the boundary of the divine. That is not a free choice, but surrendering to toxic temptations. This story reminds us of the value of loyalty, humility and reverence for the laws set by God. We are not merely outside observers of this story, but also those who must face and live with their own choices every day. What lessons can we learn from these mistakes to avoid repeating them? Reflect and walk the path that the Lord has guided.